Wikipedia have more than 300 hits per month, which demonstrate the outreach of the medium. But in the 1990s, the project for a journal of applied PCP that Fay and Franz Epting had envisioned was aborted because publishers thought it not viable. The free online journal, PCTMP, that Trevor and Bud I edit, has now nearly 750 subscribers in more than 40 countries. So there is a potential out there for taking up PCP. With the help of the internet, unfinished business can become work in progress, but are potentially never finished. Now, new avenues. New avenues to explore and questions to ask is the final chapter in the handbook. Among the issues Fay raised in this chapter were literary criticism, the world of music, and construing historical decisions. The first goes back to Don Bannister's paper, A PCT View of Novel Writing and Reading of 1988. I found these forays into uncharted territory quite interesting because they enable us to extend the range of application of PCT to areas that I personally deem of fundamental relevance for the human condition. Therefore, I was most happy that I found PCP colleagues who joined me in producing a book and 2 journal special issues on PCP and the arts, co-edited with Kenneth Sewell and Viv Burr. And especially that Fay was among them, writing a chapter on Kelly's poetry. With respect to politics, Fay published a paper by Don Bannister on the personal construct theory and politics, and the politics of personal construct theory. In the handbook, it quoted a remark by Kelly, as reported by Bannister, that politics might be where he would like PCT to go in an elaborative sense. Only a few attempts have been made by PCP scholars to approach this field. But what a fascinating idea to imagine constructive alternativism becoming a leading paradigm in the field of political action. Now, as a coda, sort of, in conclusion, I would like to think that the unfinished business, as outlined by Fay, would be to give PCT the place in the world that it deserves. And the legacy of Fay Franzella is, in my view, that she gave us the means to achieve that goal. Now finally I'm getting to some literally unfinished business of Fay's that she didn't live to tidy up, in her words. A few years ago, when we discussed her chapter on Kelly's poems for the book Creative Construing, she mentioned cartoon-type illustrations that Kelly had drawn for his unpublished book Understandable Psychology in 1932, and sent me copies of some of them. A few had been published in Fay's biography of Kelly. I suggested publishing them with an introduction by her. Last year that project got nearer to realization. She planned to present them successively in the Center's newsletter, Constructive Interventionist, and then the whole package as a special section in our online journal, PCTMP. Unfortunately, this did not happen. More importantly, a while ago, we corresponded about letters Kelly had written to her during the last years of his life. She thought that they contained some valuable material of interest for understanding the development of the theory. In one of her final messages to me, on the 5th of December last year, she wrote, "I need to get back to you about some unfinished business." Kelly's letters. Did I send you copies? You suggested that they be edited, and I'm wondering if you would consider doing that task. I can send you copies if you don't have them. Just some thoughts about tidying up. And later the same day, I'll tell you more about the Kelly letters in due course. My time seems a bit limited at the moment, and the cat is worrying me in front of my computer saying, "It's supper time." Sadly, this was not going to happen. And now, at the very end, on a brighter note, I would like to show you, with apologies for my personal vanity, a photo that Fay took during the gala dinner cruise on Lake Wannsee at the International Congress of PCP in Berlin in 1999, which is a favorite place on my desk. Many of you will remember the occasion because you were there. Okay, thank you.
Are we able to have just a few minutes for?
Yeah, we could do a couple of minutes. Yeah.
So any I know one or two people said they wanted to make their own personal statement.
Well, I don't know if it adds much, but just a few small comments. First thing I wanted to say is that I am immensely grateful to Fay05. After my doctoral dissertation, I became interested in Kelly, and I wrote to her, and then she immediately said, come and stay with me. So I stayed with her for several weeks, and not only did we have very, very many good conversations, but she also, in a very, very friendly way, said that we must meet other people in personal construct psychology, and she graciously introduced me to, especially I remember Don Bannister and Miller. So that was a great experience. And sort of another thing which was a surprising side of Fay05, but which to me adds the picture to her magnanimity in a way, and that was, some of you may have heard about, I spent some week with him. He was partly crazy, Bill Chambers, and I stayed with him a few weeks and went to a conference in the meantime and came back, and I mentioned the lot of emphasis on generations. I think some people were fifth generations from Kelly, and then he picked it up and wrote a poem. Just remember two lines: we are the lost generations, and George Kelly rolls over in his grave. It was very spiteful, but what meant tremendously inspired me was that Fay05 published this poem in the Construct, and that was a great experience to me, to see her openness also to a hostile voice. I would never have thought that, but I think we might add that to our to get even a more comprehensive picture of the great women we are missing now. Thank you. Thank you.
Not being in a clinical psychotherapy field, I often felt slightly like the wallflower. But the first conference in '77, I'd been read Inquiring Man. It struck a chord, and I was very curious to see Don Bannister and Fay05, get some impression of them. And my first impression of Don was when I saw this guy going past, pulling a trolley. And I said, who's he? Someone said, it's Don Bannister. And that was the first kind of sense of the way there's not a real separation between people, much in a hierarchical sense of PCP, which is quite different to other areas and conferences I've been to. He was humble enough to pull the trolley. Fay kind of scared me the first time I actually presented, which was at the conference in Holland, because I looked at the program and she was presenting in parallel, and that scared the out of me because I thought I might get a 0 on attendance. And then there was another good learning, because I realized this was a conference where people went to papers that they connected with, were interested in. Whereas some conferences I've been to in my main domain of sports and exercise, they go because of the name at the top of the sheet. I'd have loved to have gone to a paper. I was denied that privilege because I was there having to present. But again, it introduced the flavour of the community. And one more was, I think it was at the conference in Hearts Mountains. Eric Burton and I became good friends at Oxford, and we were still good friends. And it was the first time I'd seen the other side of Fay. She came in, she was a bit squiffy. For those who don't know the word squiffy, that's the good place you get after a few glasses of wine. And she clearly had a few. And she came up and she just sat with us for a couple of minutes, and she was so relaxed. And she said, talk to these two, talk to these two. I like these two. These two are going to do things. And I said to Eric, is she often like this? He said, I've never seen her like this. But he was her PhD student, so maybe he saw the serious, nurturing, good academic. So she had multiple dimensions to her personality. And without the inquiring man, I wouldn't be sitting here, and I suspect none of us would be sitting here. What a contribution that little book was, and how it brought so many of us into a meaning-making and meaningful psychology, as opposed to an academic study, a dissociated psychology. So I have a lot to thank her for, and Don Bannister, and it's changed my career, but it's also helped me to change my life. Nice to be able to know her.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and